Tonight, Justin Trudeau says he's slowing down on his refugee rush. But is he really? It's November 25th. You're watching the Ezra Levant Show.
Why should others go to jail when you're the biggest carbon consumer I know?
There's 8,500 customers here, and you won't give them an answer.
You come here once a year with a sign, and you feel morally superior.
The only thing I have to say to the government about why I publish it is because it's my bloody right to do so.
Screening refugees usually takes 10 months, not just medical exams for communicable diseases, but background checks. Who are these people? Are they really refugees? Are they terrorists? Are they really in danger, or are they just economic opportunists looking for free welfare and other goodies? Some of the most famous terrorists in the West have sneaked into our countries as refugees. The Boston Marathon bombers came to America as refugees. Ahmed Rassam, the Millennium bomber who tried to sneak into the U.S. from Canada on a mission to blow up the Los Angeles airport, he claimed he was a refugee. Rayad Jasser, who plotted to blow up Via Rail, his whole family came to Canada as refugees. And of course, several of the Paris terrorists earlier this month came to Europe claiming to be refugees. So these background checks aren't just academic questions. When you're scooping up tens of thousands of people from a terrorist war zone, getting it wrong is deadly serious. It could literally kill Canadians. Justin Trudeau wanted to jam in 25,000 Syrian refugees by Christmas for some reason, just 1 month from now. Canadians were appalled. Literally tens of thousands of people signed petitions like ours at refugeepause.ca. So yesterday, the Liberals blinked. They said they were going to slow down, take a pause. So instead of rushing through 25,000 refugees in the next 30 days, they're going to rush through 10,000 in the next 30 days, and then another 15,000 in the 60 days after that. Sorry, is that supposed to make us feel better? Here's Trudeau telling a CBC fanboy that he made the decision to slow down a touch, in part, out of fear for national security. Here, watch.
The decision was made more recently, yes. So it was after the attacks in Paris, but it wasn't because of the attacks from Paris. There was a number of impacts, including the concern we had about the fact that if, when you're bringing over 25,000 people, the law of large numbers says there will be a few people who will be surprisingly problematic. And the fact that we might be stuck with people in a sort of legal limbo that we could not then allow to be walking around the streets in Canada, but we could not also return to a war zone, meant that there was a real challenge around not doing the processing over there.
So he is worried about national security. He's worried about bad apples sneaking in amongst genuine refugees, that in large numbers of people, you'll have evil stowaways, and once they're here, you won't be able to get rid of them because our left-wing courts are stacked with ultra-liberal judges who would let a terrorist stay here because it would violate the terrorists' human rights to send them back. So still 25,000 people jammed through, but in 90 days, not 30. Do you feel better about that? We still don't have proper answers. Who will select these people? Will they select themselves? Will we delegate that selection to corrupt UN officials who run the refugee camps, who have their own agendas? Who's going to do the background checks here? And what kind of background checks will be done? How many Arabic-speaking immigration officers do we even have? Will we even interview every refugee? What kinds of questions would we ask? And how would we verify the answers? Do you really think we can interview even 10,000 people in the next 30 days in Arabic and check their answers and check their references in a war zone? 10,000 people in 30 days. If these bureaucrats were working 7 days a week, that's 300 people a day. So 30 an hour, 10 hours a day. So we would interview them for 2 minutes each. Really, so 2 minutes of vetting each in Arabic. And then onto the planes they get. So is that any better than 60 seconds each? Are we supposed to feel better about this? Again, why the rush? What possible reason is there to do this so quickly? Why rush the 10,000? I don't even believe 90 days is enough for the next 15,000, but why 10,000 still by Christmas? It couldn't be more arbitrary, and yet it couldn't be more clearly designed to flout the regular rules and protections. Do you really think this is sufficient? As I've said before, the Liberals, and Trudeau in particular, are the people who believe you shouldn't even have to show photo ID to vote in Canada. You shouldn't even have to take off your Muslim face-obscuring veil, called a niqab, to attend citizenship court. Will we even ask people to take off their niqabs when they're being interviewed for security purposes? Are there even interviews? What will those 120-second long conversations sound like? It's one thing to test for membership in terrorist groups, but like the Tsarnaev brothers, it's not just people who are terrorists, it's people who support terrorist ideology or might become terrorists, people who believe in Islamic extremism, fundamentalism, Islamism. It doesn't mean you're a terrorist yourself, actually, but what if you simply believe in Muslim supremacism over other religions? What if you simply believe that women are morally inferior to men and should be submissive, and that it should be okay to beat your wife, as radical Islam says? What if you don't believe in the separation of mosque and state? None of that is picked up in a terrorism background check. As I've shown you before at our website, syrianpoll.ca, 31% of Syrian refugees say they oppose the goal of degrading the Islamic State terrorist group. Seriously, 31% of Syrian refugees say they're not against the Islamic State. 37% of Syrian refugees say they actively oppose, they morally oppose our military mission against the Islamic State. 41% of Syrian refugees say they blame the Jews or America for their problems, 4 times more than blame radical Islam. Do you really think we are screening for any of this craziness? So do you really feel better about 10,000 Syrians being rushed through by Christmas instead of 25,000? Do you really feel better about the rest coming 60 days after that, when the process normally takes 10 months? Do you really think it's okay, as Trudeau does, that sure, you're going to have the odd bad apple slip through?
You know, when you're bringing over 25,000 people, the law of large numbers says there will be a few people who will be surprisingly problematic. And the fact that we might be stuck with people in a sort of legal limbo that we could not then allow to be walking around the streets in Canada, but we could not also return to a war zone.
Yeah, is that okay? I mean, what's acceptable out of 25,000? That 1% are extremists? That's 250 people. Even 1 in 1,000. Is it okay if we bring in 25 extremists? How many is acceptable? Let me put it to you this way. If you were hiring someone to be a babysitter for your kids or a teacher at your kid's school, what percentage of extremists would be acceptable to you out of 25,000? I've heard this analogy. If someone gave you a bowl of 25,000 Smarties and said, only 1 in 1,000 are poisoned, only 25 Smarties are poisoned, would you eat any of them? If only 1 Smartie was poisoned, would you eat them? It was risky to do all this before the terrorist attacks. Now it's just suicide. Look, please visit our website, refugeepause.ca. 10,000 Syrian refugees rushed in by Christmas is no safer than 25,000 rushed in by Christmas. This isn't about being liberal or conservative, right-wing or left-wing. It's about inviting danger into our neighborhoods. Just slow it down. Pause it. If not, why? What danger are you hoping to bring here? More after the break.
Looking for the perfect gift? Did you know the Rebel.media has a store? Make a statement with a t-shirt. Have your morning coffee in a Fearless Travel coffee mug. There's even an Ezra Levant bobblehead. It's a one-stop shop for the perfect gift. And don't forget to pick up something for yourself. Go to therebel.media/store to find out more.
I am thrilled to announce the arrival of one of my old friends, Lorrie Goldstein. He's the acting comment editor of the Toronto Sun and a columnist there. Lorrie, it's great to see you again. Thanks for coming to our little startup here.
It's impressive. I think that great things are going to happen, and I'm delighted to see you and so many of the people who were formerly at Sun News here making this thing go.
Well, I mean, we're starting small, and we don't have all the bells and whistles of the Sun News Network, but I think the media landscape is changing. And I don't know, it feels good to still be in the talking business.
And you've got the perfect name, The Rebel. I love it, because that's what you're about.
Thank you. I love so many things you talk about and you write about. Can I ask you what you're working on today for tomorrow's Sun Media across the country?
Yeah, tomorrow I'm going to work on basically what I would call the liberal flip-flop on the issue of the Syrian refugees. You know, Ezra, that for since they announced it, they have been determined that they were going to bring in 25,000 Syrian refugees by January 1st, 2016. Suddenly they have reversed I agree with them. They said, you know what, we can't get everybody in. We have to do this properly. We have to do security checks. So we're only going to have 10,000 in by January 1st. And then we'll bring in another 25,000 in the end over till next February of 2017. What I want to talk about is, well, if you recall, Ontario Premier Kathleen Wynne made some statements that, well, anyone said, don't let people hide under security concerns for what their real motivations are, which are racism and xenophobia. And Ujjal Dosanjh, the former federal Liberal cabinet minister, the former Liberal premier of British Columbia, called her out quite a. This is a man who has a record of battling terrorism and extremism
in his own community. He's a Sikh man,
exactly,
who's a security. I mean, I disagree with him on economics, but on security, he's strong.
So he was someone with the moral authority, and he basically said to Kathleen Wynne. He really laid it down. He basically said, don't you call me and people who feel like I do racist and xenophobic. That there's a real concern here that has to be addressed. And that's that, yes, we want to bring in people who are suffering, but it has to be done with the primary concern being the safety of Canadians. So what I want to explore is, all right, Kathleen Wynne said that if you if you say you have security concerns, that's really a Trojan horse for your real motivation, which is racism. Well, now the government of Canada, including the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, has said, you know what, to his credit, we have to do this the right way. We're going to slow it down. Well, I want to talk about, well, by Premier Wynne's logic, does that mean that the Prime Minister of Canada is racist and xenophobic? And the larger issue, this is what Liberals do. They can't just feel that you are wrong in a debate. You have to be morally inferior. There must be something wrong with you. Premier Wynne did the same thing on her very controversial sex education curricula. Parents who were opposed were homophobic. Not that they had legitimate concerns, but that they were homophobic. And so I want to talk about this. I think it's largely a liberal idea that you're not just wrong if you debate a liberal, you are morally inferior. Yeah. And until they adapt, as they have here, the view of the alleged racist and xenophobic people, which is, you know what, we do have to do this more slowly. Yeah. And then it becomes a responsible position. Yeah. And I'm interested in how the liberal mind works. Yeah. It's almost like doublethink. Yeah. You know, one day you're motivated, you don't want all these people here. Oh, you're racist, you're xenophobic. The next day, oh no, actually that is the responsible thing to do. But you're still racist and xenophobic. You
know, if you were not afraid after the Paris terrorist attacks, something's broken in you. I mean, that was a successful terrorist attack, successful in terms of, it was terrifying. It terrorized not just France, but the fact that some of the perpetrators sneaked in with refugees.
And some were homegrown.
Yeah, so absolutely, that's another problem too. But to tell people who are afraid for real reasons, not out of racism, but afraid because we just saw what happened in Paris and we see what's happening in Syria every day, to tell people that is not a legitimate feeling. If you feel that way, you're a racist, and you drive them out of the political conversation, you're pushing them into more fringe or extreme places. Have those people at the table, deal with their concerns, don't push them out. And I keep saying, you tell someone often enough that they are a racist, they are a homophobe, they are these things. Well, what happens if one day they actually believe you and say, all right, fine, then I'm a racist? Yeah, it's dangerous in you profaning the word racist, because we should keep that word like a sharp knife that is rarely used. If someone is really racist, fine, call them that. But if you call anyone who disagrees with you a racist, when we actually encounter a racist, the word means nothing.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the concerns of Ujjal Dosanjh, who has experienced racism. He's a Sikh man. Yeah. And I also find it, for example, in my own work with the black community in Toronto, I find that working middle-class black people are very careful about using the word racism because they know its power. Yeah. The people who most often use it, white liberal academics.
You're so right. And And we see this in political correctness, where jokes, I mean, the whole point of a joke is you go a little further than maybe you do in regular conversation. So political correctness, that calling anything racist, it profanes that word, like you say, and people who know the power and know what real racism is, they don't do that casually. Hey, I want to pivot to one more conversation before we have to say goodbye to you. And it's what happened in my home province of Alberta. I'm here in Ontario now in exile, but in Alberta where my heart is, they brought in a carbon tax on Sunday, which is a weird day to announce it, literally right before the big football game, the CFL West Finals. It was weird. You have a lot of experience looking at green energy schemes, green taxes, cap and trade things here. What are the things that Albertans should be aware of, be wary of, as it goes down that road too?
Well, I think it's the same that people in Ontario need to be worried about with Kathleen Wynne's cap and trade plan. And that's that I've certainly looked at the Ontario one, and I can say with confidence the Ontario one has nothing to do with lowering emissions. It's a cash grab. And the Alberta one, from what I've seen, it's the same thing. Governments like to say that they are defending us against these big evil polluters. But that's not what's going on in any of these green schemes. They are bringing on side the alleged evil computers by steering a substantial portion of the money to them. In Ontario, the example I would give is the government has said they're going to, cap and trade is where you buy and sell carbon credits. The government auctions them off to industry. I read their plan, Ezra, and for the first 4 years, they are going to give 100% free carbon credits to the province's biggest polluters. That is literally giving them free money.
This is the Ontario plan.
This is the Ontario plan.
Can I show you a graph from the Alberta plan? Now, this is from a University of Calgary economist named Trevor Tomby. He made this graph himself. So this is a homemade graph by this professor based on the 90-page technical briefing. And here's what, I mean, there's a lot of text on the screen. Let's just leave it up there for a minute. Let me try and explain this. By 2018, the carbon tax in Alberta is supposed to bring in $3 billion. But according to this UC professor, it'll actually bring in $6 billion, but $3 billion will be paid out. $250 million to low-income Albertans, a little bit for energy efficiency, but about half the money will go to, as you say, large emitters. So it's not revenue neutral.
No.
Half of it's a cash grab for the government, and half of it goes to actually the big emitters.
Yeah, and that's what governments are doing to get the big emitters on side. They're basically going to give them our money. Revenue neutral has a very specific meaning, and with respect, I don't think the Premier of Alberta understands. I honestly don't think, because she said this was revenue neutral.
Here, let me show a quick clip of that. Here,
sure,
take a look at this.
The Alberta carbon price will therefore be revenue neutral, fully recycled back into the Alberta economy. To that end, revenue will be reinvested directly into measures to reduce pollution, including clean research and technology, green infrastructure like public transit, to help finance the transition to renewable energy, and efficiency programs to help people reduce their energy use.
Yeah, that's not revenue neutral. Revenue neutral would mean whatever you take in a carbon tax, you reduce in an income tax. Stéphane Dion, when he called it a green shift, it's pay taxes on carbon, but get it back in income tax. It's just a new sales tax.
Basically, whatever you think of it, Christy Clark in BC, the Liberals there have brought in a revenue tax because what it raises, it's basically a sales tax. And what it raises, they give back to business and people in business tax cuts, income tax cuts. So basically, revenue neutral means the government revenue stays the same. Yeah. If you bring in a new tax, you lower other taxes so that the net revenue of the government. Alberta and Ontario are saying quite boldly, oh no, in Ontario, the Premier and her climate change minister won't say how much, but bureaucrats have said $2 billion a year. In Alberta, we're talking $3 billion a year, maybe $6 billion with $3 billion net. And they have abandoned the concept of revenue neutral, which is how we were sold this in the beginning. Yeah. Now they're going to say, well, we'll help people retrofit their homes. Poor people are disproportionately impacted by carbon pricing, so we'll help them. Well, yeah, you should be helping them, but you should be helping everyone. Yeah. This is not about lowering emissions. Yeah. This is about governments that are desperate for money. Bad enough in Ontario, where at least our economy is starting to recover because of lower oil prices, because of a lower Canadian dollar. Think of what's going on in Alberta. This is an economy that is underwater because of the collapse in gas and oil prices. And when we know the industry is boom bust and all that. But given that, you're going to take $3 billion a year out of Albertans' pockets? Yeah. it makes no sense at all. And it just shows that if you don't manage the books, you have to do these things that actually harm the public, and of course, pretend that it's for the good of the public.
Yeah, it's great to see you again. I just want to say one thing to our viewers. We've started a campaign called StopTheCarbonTax.com, and in our first day and a half, more than 1,000 people have signed up for our lawn sign. My goal is to have 100,000 lawn signs across Alberta, and more than 1,000 people signed up after a day and a half, so we're well on our way. Lorrie, it's great to see you again. Thanks for coming by, my friend.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, it's great to see you. After the break, Michael Schmidt, that name might ring a bell. He is an Ontario farmer who keeps fighting the man. He wants to sell unpasteurized milk. It's not to my taste, but really, does this guy need to be prosecuted for crimes, for offenses for it? That's after the break. Stay with us. We've heard you loud and clear. You can't get enough Canadian conservative news and opinion. Why not check out our blog? It's all your favorite conservative bloggers together on a page called The Megaphone. Go to therebel.media/The Megaphone or click on the Megaphone menu from our main page to check it out. Welcome back. I'm Ezra Levant. A very interesting guest today. I'm going to jump right in. Michael Schmidt, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you as well.
Last time I spoke with you was at the Sun News Network. That was a couple years ago now. Can you reintroduce yourself to our viewers? You're a farmer. Tell me what you farm and why you're in trouble.
I'm farming for the last 33 years here in Canada. I am a dairy farmer, and I was part of the current system, the supply management system. And then in the early 90s, we got a lot of people asking us if they could have fresh milk directly from the farm. And I couldn't do it because of the supply management. Then I introduced the cow share program where the people actually bought into a cow in order to get their milk. And in 1994, we got raided the first time, and we ended up in court with the province. We lost about 2/3 of our farm. And rebuilt then over years with a change system so that they become actually more equitable owners in the farm. We changed that, and in 2006, 25 armed officers from the MNR.
What does MNR stand for?
Ministry of Natural Resources.
Armed? They have guns?
They had guns. They came basically in camouflage uniform, in hazmat suits, came to the farm, raided our farm, took our cheese equipment, took products and so on, and dumped the product. And then I got charged with 20 offenses under the Health Act and under the Milk Act.
Now, what do they mean by Health Act? Were you doing anything unhealthy, or were they just saying you can't sell fresh milk to people?
Well, they said that under the Health Act, Section 18, that you are not allowed to sell any unpasteurized milk.
Now, the people who you were selling this unpasteurized milk to, they knew it was unpasteurized. That's specifically why they wanted it. I mean, that's not my taste, but there are people who love that raw milk or fresh milk, and that's why they were coming to you. You weren't tricking them. You weren't saying, it was the opposite. They came to you because they didn't want the pasteurized stuff.
We had quite a comfortable living with the Milk Marketing Board, and then we got basically, because of the demand of the people, and we have an organic farm, and we like to communicate with people and deal with people, and more people came to us and said, we have problems with drinking pasteurized milk, and can we try raw milk? And that's what they did.
And so 25 armed Ontario officers stormed the farm in hazmat suits.
In hazmat suits.
That's crazy.
It's completely crazy. It's a dairy farm. We were just farmers.
So you were charged with 20 offenses. Now, you're talking about things going back 21 years now, and then 10 years now. Now, this worked its way through the courts.
And then we went through the courts. First, I defended myself in court on the 20 charges, and I got acquitted in 2010 after 4 years. I got acquitted.
And what did the judge say? I mean, that's quite something to win when you're your own lawyer. I mean, you're a dairy farmer. The law can be a technical, complicated beast, and you won. That's quite. What did the judge say?
Well, I had a lot of time to prepare myself. I mean, I ended up with a lawyer, which cost a lot of money, and then before the trial, this specific lawyer wanted so much more money that I said, you know what, I'll do it myself.
What did the judge say when you won?
And the judge then said, that people have an inherent right, if they're informed and if they have an equitable interest in the operation, they have the right to opt out of the protection of the state, which was, this was
it's
really
it's a liberty point of view.
Unbelievable ruling when you think about that a judge grants people to opt out of the system.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it was a milestone in
So obviously the Ontario government appealed that.
And they were, I mean, they're bad losers. If they would have left it alone, it would have been just perfect. But no, they had to appeal. So they appealed, then they got the judge they wanted, basically, and the judge came down, and then came this whole litany of because it's a health hazard and because science is in our favor and so on.
I tell you, if you were selling marijuana, your marijuana would be legalized, but you can't even sell milk in Ontario. If you were a marijuana farmer, you'd be getting government grants right now.
Yeah, and that is what upsets a lot of people, because most of the people, especially the older ones, all grew up on raw milk.
Yeah, yeah, that's an old-timey thing. And it's also a new thing. I mean, a lot of the hipsters, again, it's not my taste, but if someone wants to buy raw milk, why am I going to say the law has a place in the kitchens of the nation? Now, you fought this all the way up to the Ontario Court of Appeal with the help of the Canadian Constitution Foundation. We're fans of theirs. At the final step, you lost. You tried to appeal to the Supreme Court of Canada. They said, we're not interested. Is that right?
That's exactly it.
So that would be one end of the story. But then I saw something the other day on the internet that I could not believe, and that's when we reached out to you. I understand that, I grew up west of Calgary. My parents were not farmers, of course, but we were surrounded by farmers and people who sort of took care of the right away along the roads, like they would just combine the weeds down or whatever. So let me get this straight. So you were basically mowing the side of the highway, if I got this right, right outside your farm, and I can't even believe this, so let me just put it to you, and you tell me if I got this right. And you came across surveillance devices filming your property. Is that right?
Yeah, just to clarify that. They were aware that they cannot direct the camera right at our property, but they directed it so that everybody who comes and goes to the farm gets filmed, gets photographed, including license plates, face, children, everything.
And so these surveillance cameras, were they hidden in any way?
They were hidden in bushes.
Hidden in bushes?
Hidden in bushes.
And where were these bushes? Were these just on the side of the road?
They were on the side of the road. And what was interesting, when I called the neighbors and talked to the neighbors and friends and said, what shall we do? There was an agreement, let's take them down. We took one camera down, and in the camera it said camera number 2. So we knew that there was another camera. And then a day later or 2 days later, neighbors went along the road and really searched and found the second set of cameras. And then, through the disclosure now in the courts, we found out that there was a third camera.
So, back up a second. You mentioned disclosure in the courts. So you took down these cameras, and what did you do with them? You opened them up, you took a look at them. You didn't know who they were.
Actually, friends took them down and opened them up. We looked at it, and there was no identification in it. Okay, it was not indicating anything if it was owned by a government or by
anyone.
Person. Yeah, anyone. So we were thinking back and forth, and then I decided to go to the local police force.
So you took the cameras to the police?
No, the cameras ended up at a lawyer's place.
Good idea.
For safekeeping.
Yeah, good idea.
Because I don't have a great trust in police.
Well, 25 dairy cops raid your farm with guns. I'd be skeptical too. So bring me to the end of it. You went to the cops and said, got these cameras.
Can you investigate that?
And what did the cops say?
Because we fear that there's a stalker out there. There's the school down the road.
There is a stalker called the government of Ontario. And what did the cops say?
First, they said nothing. They said, we'll investigate. 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from the detective and said, well, these are just trail cameras for wildlife. And I started laughing, and I said, these are high-performance surveillance cameras.
And for wildlife on the highway right at your farm.
And then he said, well, if you don't return them, then I'm going to charge you with theft. And I started laughing.
Yeah. Well, but looks like he's got the last laugh. Were you in fact charged with theft?
And then for sure, I go, well, there came one event before that, that we suddenly got raided by another 20 people.
Did they have guns this time also?
They said they didn't have guns. They said, because I said
Were
to
they
them,
wearing the hazmat suits again?
they had to, because...
They had to?
They had to. And then...
Well, I'm glad that Ontario has every serial killer, every murderer, every drug dealer, every gun smuggler, every Hells Angels under wraps so they can take on the real problem.
Exactly. So, but what happened then, at the raid on our farm, there was one phone call I made, and within an hour, there were 50 people there that blocked off the entire farm.
Like your friends and neighbors, you mean?
Neighbors.
They blocked the farm, eh?
They blocked the farm. First, they were in control. Then we were in control.
All right, well, let's fast forward to today. Who's in control now? You've been charged with theft under.
I have several. I got charged. Then 2 days after the raid on the farm, I got charged with for theft and for mischief, public mischief, for taking them down. I had to go for fingerprinting on election night. On election night at 7 o'clock, I had to appear at the police station. I went in there and said, "This is not an indictable offense." They threw me into jail overnight. In jail.
Overnight in jail.
Overnight in jail. In the morning, 3 cops came in with guns and tasers and said, "Time is up, fingerprinting." I said, I refuse to fingerprint. You not argue with cops in the middle of the in early morning hours. So they forced me to fingerprint, and then they released me. And then I got charged 2 weeks later. There was an arrest warrant out for me because of resisting a peace officer.
Unbelievable. Listen, is it true you don't have any lawyer right now?
I have no lawyer, no.
I'm glad you came in because I wanted to hear this from you. I saw this on the internet and I didn't, frankly, I was skeptical. It sounded too crazy, but I believe you because I know what you've been through. I know some civil liberties lawyers, and I think I can find a civil liberties lawyer who will think this surveillance of you and your property and these raids is outrageous, as I do. And I think I can find a lawyer. I don't have one signed up right now. If I can find a civil liberties lawyer to take your case, and if I can crowdfund from our viewers some money, and if obviously you have to get along with this lawyer, I think we got to team up with you. Would you accept that help from me?
It would be just amazing because it's such a fundamental violation of our rights.
And I got to tell you, I mean, I'm not a raw milk guy. I like my food processed, preserved. I don't, you know what? Red Bull is my health drink.
Okay, good.
So my point, but that's not what it's about. I don't care what you do. I don't care. Live and let live. I mean, in a country where where marijuana is being legalized, for a milk farmer to be raided and then spied on and thrown in jail overnight is so offensive to me. And the police, and maybe these aren't real cops, some of them were, sounds like some were natural resources cops, that this is how we're paramilitarizing.
Yes, for sure.
Food inspection. This is so wrong to me. I mean, I couldn't care about raw milk personally, but I care about your civil liberties, and this makes me very mad. I will reach out after the show. I'm going to phone some civil liberties lawyers. Come back on, and we will make an appeal to our viewers to help fight this. And the fight over raw milk sounds like that court case is over, but the fight over your civil liberties and your right to be free from surveillance, that fight is only beginning. Will you come back on when we get a lawyer?
Definitely.
I wish you good luck. I'm on your side.
Thanks, Ezra.
This is a bigger story than milk.
Yeah.
This is about an individual man's right to his property, his economic liberty, and to be free from harassment of the state. That's what this is about. We'll talk more. We'll talk more. I'm Ezra Levant. More after these words.
So open-minded that the brains have fallen out.
What's the point that you're making?
The point that I'm making is that if you're going to propose a massive overhaul to the way the economy is developed in terms of carbon tax, cap and trade, other forms like that, it helps to have some science that is in fact settled.
Welcome back. It's time for your viewer feedback. William writes, Dr. Tim Ball knows the science and the politics of this climate change crapola. I would like to see him on this site after the Paris Gong Show is completed to give his assessment and what to look for into the near future. You know, it's not going to stop. It's not about science anymore. Tim Ball is a scientist. He's a climatologist. But, I mean, the other day I watched Premier Rachel Notley reveal her climate change plan. It's not about climate change. These people don't even argue anymore that their carbon taxes will reduce the temperature of the world. I don't think they believe it. I don't think they even care. They just use it as an excuse, like, oh, it's for the children. What are you against the children? It's for the climate. Are you against the climate? I don't think science is even part of the debate anymore. Alan writes, Ezra, please separate your topics with separate videos. It would make it easier to choose and post subjects. Thanks for the great work. I appreciate that advice, and I take your point. Online watching a half-hour or a 45-minute show, that's a serious commitment, and it's not the kind of thing you typically do with your cell phone. It's the kind of thing you do if you can hook your computer up to your TV set, which people do more and more these days with things like Roku or Apple TV. We're still figuring it out. I think that in the next month or so, we're going to unpack these longer TV shows with more segments coming out. We'll probably do that the next morning. We're doing some trial and error, but I appreciate the advice. We're going to get it right. This tweet is a fun one. D.A.G. Hetherington writes, Ezra, you're a winner. And he shows this graph of a poll that he took for the most irrelevant person. Stephen Harper, Thomas Mulcair, or me, and he says I won the poll for the most irrelevant person. Well, I'm in good company if Thomas Mulcair and Stephen Harper are there, but it made me think of some basic logic. If you're taking a poll about someone, if you're going to the trouble of surveying people if someone's relevant or not, doesn't that sort of prove in advance that you think they're relevant enough to take a poll about? And if people were to all mark yes, 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 isn't that sort of an oxymoron? I don't know. Listen, Hetherington's obviously a leftist. Don't try using logic on a leftist. They might get hurt. I'm Ezra Levant. I enjoy your feedback. Keep it coming. Here's how: by Twitter, by email, Facebook, or right underneath on our website. We have a lively comments section. Come back tomorrow. This is such a busy week. There's so much news out of Ottawa, news out of Alberta, news out of Ontario, news around the world, news out of Turkey. Will there be a war between Turkey and Russia? Everything's looking very scary these days. We'll do our best to help you make sense of it. I'm Ezra Levant. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.